You didn't think I'd be done with mobile Resident Evil games yet, do you? Well, here's another one with Resident Evil Uprising. This game's considered the follow-up to Resident Evil Genesis, which was an abridged interpretation of the remake of the first Resident Evil game from Jill Valentine's perspective with, changes, which you can see in its review. This game is an abridged interpretation of the events of Resident Evil 2 as you explore familiar sites from the game, but with a slight twist. The game has you start off as Claire Redfield, who has come to Raccoon City to find her brother Chris, a member of the Special Tactics and Rescue Service, or STARS Alpha Team for short. Chris was a key character in uncovering the Umbrella Corporation's involvement in researching and developing bioweapons. Let's address the elephant in the room here. While this game features characters such as Jill, Barry and Wesker, where is Chris Redfield? He's only the other character you could play as in Resident Evil and its remake. Supposedly, if Resident Evil Genesis is anything to go by. Claire arrives at the Raccoon City police station and is approached by a zombie. Thankfully, she is saved by rookie cop Leon S. Kennedy, who was supposed to start his first day on the job. After introducing one another, they decide to explore the police station to try and understand what's happened to Raccoon City. Unlike Resident Evil 2, in which Claire and Leon split up and you play their respective stories, this game introduces the zapping system from Resident Evil 0, where you can control and switch between Claire and Leon as they explore together, with the other character staying still instead of being AI controlled like in Resident Evil 0. Aside from that, the game plays much like Resident Evil Genesis as an action game with puzzle solving. But does that make it any good? Find out in The Good. While the game generally follows the Clear A scenario of Resident Evil 2, as I mentioned earlier, it does have some differences. The game also introduces its own puzzles and repurposes existing ones, which I welcome. Some of the references, dialogue and the files you pick up mostly come from Resident Evil 2 pretty much word for word, which is pretty neat.
My name's Claire. What's yours?
Sherry.
Do you know where your parents are?
They both work at the Umbrella Chemical Plant, near the city limits.
The chemical plant? Then what are you doing here?
My mom called and told me to go to the police station because it was too dangerous to stay at home.
The game even references the first game too. As you would have noticed, the game does also look a lot nicer visually as characters and enemies are larger, which I think is a step up from its predecessor. With the puzzles, the items you need to solve them have to be found first, and there's no inventory management that you have to worry about, so collect the items to your heart's content. You can also swap items between Claire and Leon in order to solve the puzzles in the game. This adds more substance to the mechanic of swapping between the two characters, and some scenes can only be triggered with Claire, while Leon can use certain items like the explosive to clear debris so you can explore the police station further. I do appreciate that both Claire and Leon share the spotlight in this game too, and are more involved with the events of the game. There's even a part of the game where you need both of them in order to solve it, so a lot more emphasis was put on the main characters this time as opposed to Genesis. The game's combat was made significantly easier as this was an issue the first game had. The game now features an auto-aim mode where so long as you're facing the enemy, the gauge would appear and you would press the button when the marker is on the red to hit the enemy. Like in Genesis, you will thankfully switch to your weapon whenever you enter a room with enemies in it, and the game makes the most of allowing you to move into position to make firing on enemies a lot easier. You still can't move and aim at the same time, so there is some form of tension there. If you prefer the aiming system that Genesis has, that option is also available too, and will provide a significant challenge to the game. The game does use music from Resident Evil 2 as well, as I found that the game seems to use a version of Resident Evil 2's library theme whilst exploring, and while in the original, the library was a safe place. In this game, and the Resident Evil 2 remake, it's anything but. The battle music used was based off Maximize Your Survival Instinct, and like Genesis, the game's music is very fitting. However, the game does have its faults, and we'll explore those in The Bad. The game still has your characters move really slowly. The only time you can run in this game is when there's an enemy in the room, and even then you're focusing more on taking the enemy out than actually looking around. I would probably put this down to the emulator, but I also found that playing more than 10 minutes in the game would make moving around and doing things really choppy. This can be remedied by starting up the game with sound off by default, as turning the sound off after you start moving choppy does not fix the issue. The combat I feel leans too much one way or the other. Auto aim will make the game far too easy, as all you need to do is simply face the enemy and one shot would kill them, unless it's a boss and you hit that sweet spot. I think to balance out the game, maybe change the amount of damage you do with auto aim. It would certainly allow you to use your other weapons, as I mostly ran through the game using the pistol, only changing weapons for the boss fights. In the Resident Evil games, zombies often take more than one hit to kill, and it provides a sense of survival as you weigh up the amount of ammunition you have against whether it's worth using it on an enemy or not. I think balancing the amount of ammunition would certainly add some more challenge to the game, and maybe dealing more damage if you choose to aim manually to reward you for it, since there is more risk in setting yourself up to aim at the enemy first before firing. You still have to look through everything in order to find items, and you'll soon find yourself carrying lots of notes, letters and files, which is a minor inconvenience. As the game follows Claire's story in Resident Evil 2, it also means that certain key characters didn't make it into the game. Leon never meets Ada Wong since he's with Claire. As the two meet in the police station, Robert Kendo is never encountered in his gun shop, and Marvin Branagh, a police officer who eventually succumbs to the virus in the police station, has been removed entirely. As it's based on an A scenario of the original Resident Evil 2, the T-00 Tyrant, or Mr. X as most people know it by, will not appear. I think the story could have been tailored better to add it in, as for some reason whilst in the labs, you're attacked by what appears to be the prototype Tyrant from Resident Evil 0. Interestingly enough, the Lickers, which were an iconic enemy from Resident Evil 2, are noticeably absent, and the alligator encounter has been significantly downgraded to a puzzle. I think even expanding the police station and having sections where you play as Sherry Birkin, avoiding enemies and getting items for Claire like in the original game, would have made the game's story flow a little bit better. The encounter with Police Chief Brian Irons, as well as Sherry's parents Annette and William Birkin, remain, and I hope so too, given that the latter two are extremely important to the plot of Resident Evil 2. Nonetheless, that's all I've got here, so it's time I give the opinion. Resident Evil Uprising is an improvement over Resident Evil Genesis. There were some new features and improvements added to this interpretation of Claire's story in Resident Evil, such as being able to swap between her and Leon, but it did come at the cost of enemies being cut and certain story elements being missed out or not being integrated, which I presume was due to mobile phone limitations. The visuals are a step up from Genesis, and I like how the game introduces its own puzzles and does its own take on existing ones to make the game more of a refreshing experience while keeping it familiar. Being able to change combat styles is also a welcome addition, though I feel the auto aim function does make the game far too easy, and I welcome using Resident Evil 2's music. The game, much like Genesis, is pretty niche, so I'd only really consider it if you're big on Resident Evil and just want to see what's out there. If you want a retelling of Resident Evil 2's story, the 2019 remake of the game is the best way to experience it. So with that, it's time for my rating. I would give Resident Evil Uprising the Alligator out of 10. Thanks for watching and stay tuned for the next Infinite Backlog review. If you enjoyed today's review, feel free to check out some of our other videos and subscribe for more. You can also follow us on Twitter, Instagram and our Facebook page. Once again, thank you for watching.